Yesterday on the program, we showed you what the origin story was on the riots Saturday. It was all because a California Democrat assemblyman didn't know what the hell was going on as he saw ICE agents returning back to a facility across the street from a Home Depot. He then live streamed it and said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm literally shaking. And the next thing you know, there's hundreds of people in the streets and cop cars are being firebombed. All right. So you learned that. If you missed it, go ahead and watch on this channel here, scroll down, and you'll see the video of yesterday's show. Now there's a secondary question. Who's paying for all of this? We shined a light a little bit yesterday on this group called Churla, who, by the way, is a non-government organization that your tax dollars, you've paid for them, you've given them a ton of money. But Trump wants more information because this is obviously coordinated. We can see video of people getting supplies delivered to them, fresh out of the box masks and concrete cinder blocks. And so who is paying for all of this anarchy in our streets?
No, I don't say the governor or the mayor. I said somebody's paying them, I think. And if they're not, they're just troublemakers. What can I tell you? But I believe somebody's paying them. I mean, I've never seen somebody with a big hammer so professional. Now, they took the bricks away from them. So they say, how do we get in? The military did. How do we get in? And what do we do? They said, I have an idea. Let's break up the concrete. And that's even better than bricks. And that's what happened.
That's right. What they're doing is taking these giant sledgehammers and they're busting up the sidewalks in Los Angeles and then using the broken pieces of concrete as weapons. It's LA, man. It's the city of angels. It's freaking Guadalajara. So he wants to get to the bottom of it, and he wants to know who's paying for this, who's organizing it, who's advising it, who's coordinating it. And he raised the issue as he was delivering remarks to soldiers at Fort Bragg.
But they came in with bricks, they were taken away, and they had hammers. Oh, wow, how did that happen? And they're pounding the sidewalk. I said, what the hell is he doing? And he's breaking it up and making it into concrete bombs in a way, and they're dropping them on our military. They're throwing them at our military. Pretty good arms they had, too. But they came in with bricks they were taken away. And
all right. And he continued along this line at Fort Bragg a little bit more.
And attempting to infiltrate and occupy federal buildings wearing armor and face shields. The best money can buy. Somebody's financing it. We're going to find out through Pam Bondi and Department of Justice who it is. They're already on it. Who's financing all this equipment? Very professional.
All right, so there's a big announcement right there. Takeaway yesterday afternoon that he's empowered Attorney General Pam Bondi to try to follow the money and see a paper trail here and find out who's funny. I'm telling you, we're going to find out that these anarchists, these people who are sowing mayhem in our streets, and this is so coordinated what we're seeing. It's so obvious. And yesterday, they globalized the intifada, if I may use that phrase. Suddenly, you saw the same protests and the same tactics and the same signs and then the same looting and the same violence in Atlanta and in Chicago and in New York and all these other big cities run by Democrats. And they're going to find non-government, what are they calling them, NGOs now? These are these community organizing groups. It's like Obama becomes president and suddenly our country is awash with community organizers. It's like, where did the hell did they all come from? And you're going to find out that these organizations, first of all, on their boards and people in their executive suites are people who used to work in the Obama White House or used to work in the Biden White House. I shouldn't say White House, administration. They had federal government jobs under Obama. They had federal government jobs under Biden. And then they get a job at one of these organizations, these nonprofits that do community outreach and efforts for the downtrodden and marginalized communities. And they also get federal dollars. They get tax dollars. You're paying for it. You're paying for the destruction of your own cities because that's the plan. You know, the biggest problem with Gavin Newsom and the Democrats when it comes to these riots right now, the biggest problem politically is if the Republican candidates, Republican elected officials, and conservative commentators like myself, if we're good at what we do, we will point out to you that there isn't a whisker of difference politically, policy-wise, between the people throwing bricks through windows and trying to kill cops and the governors of the states who are allowing it to happen. I mean, politically, There is no difference. They want the same thing. They have the same broad political goals. Now, if you're the governor or you're the mayor, you're not throwing bricks through windows. You're trying to achieve those political goals in a different way. But the people who are on the streets, they want the same thing. They just have different tactics. And not too surprisingly, the governor and the mayor who want those political goals, they want those political ends, they want the same thing that the people throwing bricks through windows and trying to kill cops, they want the same thing, but they benefit from the people on the street. People are asking, why didn't the governor of California and the mayor of Los Angeles stop all the violence on the streets? And there's only one simple answer to that: because they didn't want to. You tell me, what's harder to accomplish? Arresting rioters who are defacing buildings, destroying property, and threatening law enforcement officers? Is that hard to do? Or is securing thousands of miles of our southern border from illegal crossings, from hundreds of thousands per month that flood in across that border? I would argue that securing our border is a tougher job to accomplish, wouldn't you? Hundreds of thousands a month under Joe Biden flooding across the border. We were told they couldn't do it, and then Trump gets in. It's done. What do we have, like 500 a month or something crossing the border? It's ridiculous how easily he did that. Now you ask yourself, why didn't Biden do that? And the only answer is because he didn't want to. Because he didn't want to. So then you look at an easier task, like arresting rioters and stopping them from destroying property and looting and setting cars on fires and threatening cops. Kind of a more contained situation, I would think, with the police force, city, county, state. You could do that. You could stop the rioters, but they don't. Why not? Because they don't want to. The mayor of Los Angeles does not want to stop the violence. The governor of California does not want to stop the violence. That's why when you saw the governor's speech, 85 to 90% of it was about Donald Trump, not about stopping the violence. Remember that. Remember that. They want the same thing. The people on the streets and the people in the governor's mansion want the same thing. Now, who's paying for all of it? Senator Hawley now follows up on President Trump's remarks yesterday, saying that the Attorney General is looking into it criminally. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri announced today that he's launching an investigation from the Senate side into specifically the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. This is the group we told you about yesterday. We talked about the LA chapter, CHIRLA, pertaining to their alleged role in funding violent riots across Los Angeles. And he admonishes them to preserve all of their records from November 5th, 2024 to now. That's Election Day. All internal communications, including emails, text messages, chat logs, messaging applications relating to protest planning, coordination, or funding. All financial documents related to protests, demonstrations, or mobilization efforts in Los Angeles or elsewhere relating to immigration enforcement. All third-party contracts or vendor agreements, including any arrangements with event organizers, transportation providers, security personnel, communications consultants relating to immigration enforcement, the Los Angeles protests or similar protests elsewhere, grant applications and funding proposals that relate to or reference immigration enforcement, travel and lodging records for your individuals or groups. That's going to be a key one. If they find out they cross state lines, the leaders of this group, to engage in this behavior, well, that suddenly becomes a major federal crime. That's where the FBI and the DOJ are involved as well. Plus, he wants their donor lists. That's what Senator Hawley is trying to accomplish. Our own Jennifer Van Laar, she's the managing editor of Red State. She's great at researching stuff. She was on Fox News last night talking about what her preliminary Open Records research has already discovered about the money behind the violence in California. Jennifer is Los Angeles based, by the way. So is this guy, Alex Michelson. He's a host of the local Fox station in Los Angeles. They were on to talk about it. Here's what Jennifer Van Laar found.
It's interesting. You write about how, taxes, like taxpayer dollars may be funding these riots, Jennifer. It's interesting. You write the following here. Hundreds of protesters turned into thousands of rioters, before long complete with matching T-shirts, professionally printed signs, signaling the involvement of organizations with some degree of funding behind them. As Data Republican found, CHIRLA, Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, and the Party for Socialism and Liberation are two of the non-governmental organizations implicated in this ongoing riot. You go on to say that 96% of CHIRLA funding is from the state of California. At least it was at the end of 2023, the last time that numbers are available.
That's right. And a lot of that was through California Department of Social Services for migrant services. But in looking at their budget, only $285,000 went to migrant services, another $7 million or so to legal services, and then a bunch, millions and millions to community outreach, organizing, management. So I don't really see a whole lot going to legitimate migrant assistance there, and all of the organizing monies, what does that mean with organizing?
Well, yeah, maybe we can see some of that on the screen right now.
That's right. What you're seeing play out in the streets of Los Angeles right now is organizing and community outreach. And you just heard they get this money from the government, claiming that they're going to help with, human aid and services for so-called immigrants, people who are here illegally. But what it turns into is the money to fund all of the chaos. That's our own Jennifer Van Laar from Red State. Support her great journalism that she does at Red State. Become a VIP member of Town Hall. Just thought I'd throw that in there. All right. And then finally, independent researcher, Data Republican. She's terrific. She does a very good job of doing deep dives into open source public information. All the money that the government spends, unless it's some sort of black site CIA Pentagon operation, it is noted online. You just have to look for it. Data Republican is good at looking for it. Here's what she found. It was organized, it was funded, it was coordinated. She did a breakdown, and we're going to scroll through a bit of it right now. A number of NGOs have been implicated in this. Foremost is the Coalition for Humane Immigration Rights, CHIRLA. We told you about them yesterday. This was part of our conversation yesterday. The photos of signs show they were printed by the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Party for Socialism and Liberation is the organization that the accused assassin in D.C. was a member of. He participated in a lot of things with that group. The guy who killed the two Israeli embassy staff members in cold blood at the Jewish event in Washington, D.C., I believe that guy was affiliated with that group too. Really fine people over there. CHIRLA has this employee identification number. Most of its private funding appears to be from DAFs. What's a DAF? Anyone help me out with DAFs? Which are the hardest to trace. However, 34 million of its reported 45 million in revenue are from government grants. 34 million of its $45 million in revenue are from government grants. We're paying for this group, this organization. In their most recent year, CHIRLA jumped from 12 million to 34 million in government grants. However, it's probably from California. Only 450,000 is in federal grants. These are their two federal grants, both completed, now moving on to PSL Web. These are the block grants that they get. Again, she always shows receipts, and that's good. All right, so here's the so that's CHIRLA. Now let's move on to Party for Social and Liberation. The group which printed the signs for protest, Party for Socialism and Liberation, is not a nonprofit. They are literally the Communist Party. That's how they're described. That's who they are. This is the Communist Party in the United States. They just had to rebrand because, communist, it's sort of got a bad name, there's a lot of baggage there. Oh, DAF is Donor Advised Fund. Thank you very much for that, Kevin. Donor Advised Fund. So, yeah, we were the Communist Party of America, but, people associate it with, mass murder, Mao, Stalin, Listen, if you're Bernie Sanders, you still think those guys are great, but most people, So let's rebrand. Let's instead call ourselves the Party for Socialism and Liberation. But of course, as we saw, you can change the name, but the leopard still has the same spots. Finding financials is tricky, but I did find a wiki reference to Answer Coalition. Oh, we've heard of Answer Coalition. What's Answer Coalition? It's mentioned in the Wikipedia page to have significant financial overlap with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. It's tough to find backing on either group as they don't have a nonprofit associated with them. Both claim to be funded entirely by members. However, I did find a New York Post article claiming that both are funded by billionaire socialist Neville Singham. Suspected DC Jewish Museum terrorist Elias Rodriguez, remember I told you, has links to radical groups funded by socialist multimillionaire Neville Singham. All right, so who's that? Neville Singham, real nice guy, activist who became a billionaire by pushing Chinese propaganda worldwide. Singham also financed the People's Forum, giving it over $20 million. All three Singham-financed organizations were also heavily involved in the Colombia protests. Both the PSL and Answer Coalition connected to People's Forum, a Manhattan-based nonprofit which has ties to the Chinese Communist Party through funding from Singham, who is 71 years old. The SEIU California, that's the Service Employee Union International, the president got arrested. You research SEIU's financials, they're mostly dues-backed, right? Then you move on to the other organization. It appears as though the Million Voters Project was also involved in promoting the violence, or the protests, I should say. And here's the magical D word, democracy, on the MVP site. Million Voters Project, democracy can't work for us until it includes us. It's all the same catchphrases. It's all the same buzzwords. It's all the same propaganda. Million Voters Project gets their funding from a variety of grants, no taxpayer funding. But look at where they're getting their money from. Monetary, yes on quality schools, the Heising-Simmons Action Fund, 1630 Fund, Heisman-Simmons Action Fund, schools and communities first. It's all this web of nonprofits that all have the same goals in mind, and they all funnel the money to these organizations to do their dirty work. She says that's the end of the deep search. Guess is that we have to finger a culprit behind it. It's Neville Singham. He'll be fertile ground for any in my feed in the coming days. I'm going to wrap up the thread here. But again, China-linked tech tycoon Neville Singham, secret group of operatives at Columbia University. So he was also connected to the protests there. The truth is going to come out, whether it's from independent journalists like Dead or Republican, or from semi-independent journalists like our Jennifer Van Laar at Red State. I only say semi-independent because she actually, works for us. But other than that, she's pretty damn independent. The truth's going to, or maybe Josh Hawley, maybe Pam Bondi, but enough of these shadow organizations that are able to get government money and get private donations and fund what can only be described as un-American, society-destroying anarchy. We're fed up with it, and we're not buying it anymore. They don't have a video this time around of a cop arresting George Floyd. They don't have the lies that they perpetrated during the Michael Brown violence. They don't have the Jussie Smollett going on television as literally a trained professional actor crying about how he was beaten up by MAGA country racists at 2 a.m. in Chicago. They don't have the video taken out of context of the poor kid from a Catholic school in Washington with a MAGA hat on as some Indian activist was drumming in his face. All of these fake, fraudulent, phony stories that turn into hysterical media events that months later turn out to be, oh, gee, I guess it wasn't what we thought it was. In the meantime, people's lives are destroyed. Businesses are destroyed. City blocks are burned down. And then after the fact, everyone says, oh, gee, I guess the story wasn't exactly what we thought it was. It ain't working anymore. We're not buying it anymore. We're not going to take the crap anymore. They can try, and they'll continue to try, and we'll stay vigilant. It's going to get ugly on Saturday with all of these No Kings protests that are popping up, paid for by a Walmart heiress, by the way, which is disturbing. They're going to continue to try, And we're going to stay vigilant, and we're going to stand by what we know is true, our Constitution, our freedoms, and the proper functioning of a civil society, which it appears they're against. Otherwise, they'd be all in favor of enforcing the law. But if you boil it down, just understand something. What they're really protesting is our laws being enforced. And that should make it easy to figure out exactly who is who, if not who's paying for it.